Stay up out the way, don't get your dish splat. Stop letting this shit slide and get your lick back. And get your lick back. I feel like I'm JX. J-Way. I'm a perfectionist. Adderall got me restless. I'm gone. Run with a wild crew, they get reckless. Young boy, come up off that neck. Into the trends. See you, Lee, be the best.
Good morning, and welcome back to another episode of Corner to Copa. You're here with Foster Child and my co-host, Coach. What's the deal, Coach?
What's going on? Well, quite the way to wake up after an off day yesterday and a wild West Coast trip that kind of maybe felt a little underwhelming. But despite that, here we are on paper, 3 games out with 2 other teams right there with us. If we were getting warm, we better be sweating now.
Yeah, we we knew the West Coast road trip was going to be tough, and we ended up losing 2 of 3 to the San Diego Padres, and then we were able to take 2 of 3 from the scrappy young Oakland A's team. But we've been getting some help from our counterparts in the AL Central, and we just got a lot of teams that are on a downward trajectory in a ways. But Xander Bogaerts, Jackson Merrill, and Luis Arias gave us all the trouble we could handle in the first series of the road trip. The Padres. It started slow. Obviously, we got shut out on that quick turnaround, having to go from Detroit to San Diego for that first game, and then we ended up winning the second game, I believe, against. Or no. Did we? I think we lost the second game too. You Darvish. I'm not 100% sure, but we ended up losing 2 or 3 to the Padres, and then Ty Madden got his debut win in the last game of the series. Trey Sweeney had a 4-for-4 effort, had a home run and 3 singles, and we kind of batted around in the blowout in the Bay, as it's been titled. But ultimately, altogether, the Tigers are 73-71. We're 3 games back in the last wild card position, and we are 9 games back in the division. The Minnesota Twins have lost 10 of their last 14, including 4 in a row. And the Baltimore Orioles, who right now have the top wild card position, are 5-5 in their last 10, but they've lost 3 in a row as well. So right now, it looks like the Tigers are trending in the right direction, winning their last series. And obviously, we have 6 games coming up against Baltimore and 3 coming up against Kansas City as well. So I really feel like we can control our own destiny if we can handle business in these next couple games, because a lot of these teams above us are heading in the opposite direction. But what are your thoughts? Obviously, we'll get into everybody's remaining 18 or 19 games of the year, but what are your thoughts going into this homestand coming up?
Yeah, I mean, we looking at some of the remaining schedules for all these teams that are in play. I really do like Detroit's layout in terms of opponents and on paper in terms of strength of schedule. Obviously, with the Rockies coming up here, they haven't been pushovers as of late. New York and I think Baltimore came to town about a week and a half ago to Colorado, and they gave them fits. And I think they took the series from the Yankees too. So it's not a time to take any one team for granted or look down on them. As we just saw with Oakland, this is not the same Oakland team we saw from practically the first month of the year when they came to town and took the series from us. Of course, that was after our hot start with the Pirates and the White Sox. But personally, I'm a little disappointed in some of the decisions over the week out west. I really do think this team should have been 5-1 on this trip. The game that Montero started in San Diego, probably was out there too long. Knowing how good that lineup is on the other side, it's tough for us to match that per se. Obviously, in any game, anything can happen, but, over the projection of the whole year, law of averages dictates, we're not going to be able to keep pace in a high scoring series with a team like the Padres on paper, at least. So that was a game I thought, all things status quo, if they hadn't changed, we would have been looking at a series win in San Diego. Of course, we had that, the late game heroic on Sunday that ended up being the first win for Vanasco, the pitcher that we had just called up in that finale to at least avoid the sweep. And then that first game against Oakland on Friday, the marathon 13-inning game, that's just a game you have to have. You have 3 leads in that game, including multiple and extra innings, and they blow each lead in that half inning of blowing the game. So my opinion, they should be 1 game back, and they'd be absolutely, like you said, pretty much semi-controlling their own destiny right now, as long as they finish ahead at least 1 or 2 of their own divisional guys they're chasing. But we'll see. I mean, as we get into the schedules later in the show, man, this is going to be I think we talked about it last show, day to day. This is what it's going to be like: scoreboard watching, standing watching, in addition to watching the Tigers when they're on. But this is going to come down to, I do believe, the last series and maybe even one of the last few games of the regular season.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, we definitely had a couple we'll say bullpen blunders, or just in order for us to get in, we knew that we were going to have some good fortune. Luckily, we've had a couple of days where we've gained at least a half of game, gained at least a half of a game due to teams around us losing. And I mean, I think Shelby Miller blew a save, and I think Bo Brisky lost a game for us as well. But with the amount of pitching issues and depth problems that we've had, I think that it's to be expected that there's going to be some instances where we do, lose some games due to the fact that we just are, piecing together games. Piecing together a lot of different situations. So whereas we've gotten lucky in some instances, it's gone the opposite way in others. So that's to be expected. But when it's all said and done, we got a lot of games coming up against teams that are, that directly affect our team moving forward, as well as some teams that are considerably not as talented as us that are playing spoilers. So it's ultimately up to us whether we, get to where we want to be. But in my introduction, I forgot to mention Parker Meadows, who's been extremely clutch as of late. He's hitting 289 with runners in scoring position, including 350 with runners in scoring position with 2 outs. He has been one of, outside of Riley Green and Kerry Carpenter, who, the praises that they have will kind of go that's kind of what we expect out of them as far as doing what they need to do. But, Parker Meadows has been very integral in the turning around of this ball, this team, as well as some of the young guys that are pictured right here, Trey Sweeney and Jace Young. These guys, came up in situations where we were, quote unquote, selling. And, they very well could have gone through their bumps and bruises, which they have. They haven't been perfect thus far, but they've certainly been serviceable in contributing to the team offensively and defensively, where we could have, packed up and waited till next year. So I think this is great experience for, some of these young guys to play any meaningful games in September. And, we are in a legitimate opportunity to be a playoff team right now. And it's got every bit to do with a lot of our younger guys that are in their mid to early 20s. not to mention a Ty Madden, a Kyder Montero. The list goes on as far as how, what our young players have been able to do thus far. But we're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back on the other end of that. All right, we are back, and we're going to get into the roster, any roster updates that we have.
Yeah, it was a pretty light week in general. Most of the general news or day-to-day from the Tigers PR has just been mostly about some of the rehab stuff and some of the programs that these guys are going through. Officially, back on the 2nd, it's a little over a week ago, Wencio Perez began his rehab assignment in Toledo, where he continues to play down there right now to get back to a ready status to be cleared. Joey Wentz on the 4th was formally claimed on waivers by the Pirates, and a deal was done for him. So he is officially no longer on the 40-man roster now as a member of the Pirates to finish that DFA designation. And then on the 7th, Reese Olson was scheduled for another rehab start in Toledo on Tuesday, today, or tomorrow. No projected timetable for his return at the moment, but I think that speaks for both of us. That player right there is probably the one that we're sitting on pins and needles a little bit, waiting and hoping that any day we get the news that he's cleared, he gets activated, and that he starts, because Lord knows this bullpen needs another traditional starter to ease some of the burden that they've been shouldering over the last probably 2 months.
Absolutely. And yet another guy, Vanasco. I can't even think of his first name, but he actually
Ricky Vanasco.
Ricky Vanasco. Yeah, he got a win over the got a win over the road trip. So everybody, pretty much anybody that they plug in to get the job done comes in there and contributes. The pitch. I can't say enough about the pitching staff. They've been very instrumental in holding things together, because Lord knows we've had some ups and downs as far as offensively. We'll have a 2-1 game against the A's that we were able to squeak out, and then in the very next game put up 9 runs. It's just very up and down, but there's been less ebbs and flows of more 5 to 6 run efforts in between those extremes. So the one steady that we've had throughout the time has been the pitching staff, whether it's been our everyday starters like a Scooble, or our I always forget the name of it, the intro, or what is
the opener.
That's what it is. I want to call them a starter, but they're not starters, they're openers. So that's been any and everybody. Bo Brisky, Brian Sammons, Tyler Herder, Holton has started has open games, any and everybody. But the pitching staff has been, and Ty Madden, like I said, won his first ever start on Sunday. But this is a guy that ERA for part of his AAA stint was in the 9s and 10s, and he's come to Detroit, and he hasn't been lights out perfect, but like I anticipated, because of just the track record, has come to Detroit and been a totally different player. So it's the Chris Fetter effect coming into play yet again, and like you said, Reese Olson is on his way back for the for the conclusion of the year, and he's had a few rehab starts in AAA, and he's pretty much looked his old self. So we got an interesting run ahead of us, and we got to handle business. We got to sweep the Rockies. I'm sorry, you got to sweep the Rockies. Like
I wanted to sweep the A's, and we were.
I knew that honestly. I knew that wasn't
Yeah.
going to happen just because they've been on a little bit of a run. We historically play poor in Oakland, and they have some good players. Lawrence Butler and Brent Rooker, for all intents and purposes, is one of the better hitters in baseball right now. So I had a feeling that we weren't going to just completely sweep that series, but
Yeah, I read too heading into that series that those two guys had better numbers combined after the starting like August 1st, something like that, or since the All-Star break. Combined better batting average, slugging, home runs, RBIs, and one other, traditional offensive category for a hitter, combined better than both Judge and Soto. And that's considering Judge is having an MVP type caliber year. So yeah, I was just more so hoping, I'm like, with these young guys, that they'd be able to kind of keep pace and offset those two hot bats, because Oakland doesn't really have much in terms of the way of a starting rotation pitching. They have a good back end of their bullpen. Obviously, we all know about Mason Miller now, the flame-throwing closer that they have, who was on an incredible streak before the All-Star break. But
did he break his hand pounding the table or something?
Yeah, he broke or fractured his hand out of frustration. I think either after he got pulled or a game that he had pitched in, and the game ended, and something to that effect of frustration. But there's games where players are going to lose, and that's a part of it. We can nitpick those games to death, but at games like San Diego with Montero, where it's a manager's job to make those decisions for changes to stop the bleeding, if you will, that are preventable. And those are the ones that drive me up the wall versus the player ones, because that's the whole emphasis. Players play the game, but coaches do have an impact to a degree. But for the life of me, I need AJ to stay out of the way over these next 18 games. All right, and let the players handle the business and stop relying solely on analytics. I think that's what I miss about a guy like Jim Leyland. Mostly guttural instinct for him, timing. If he felt uneasy, it was time to change. It's time to make a move. Don't wait. Don't think about it, because when you do, you mull it over, it becomes too late. So, yeah. First up, though, we got the Chris Bryant led Rockies coming to town today for 3. So this will be interesting. It won't be mile high, that's for sure, but it's going to be warm here in Detroit this week. So I expect to see some balls flying out of the park a little bit.
Absolutely. And we're going to get to a break, and we'll see where we go on the other end of that. All right. So as we talked about earlier, everybody's got about 18 to 19 games remaining. There's going to be a lot of scoreboard watching, and hopefully the Tigers and us just handling our own business. We can't solely focus on what everybody else is doing, because if we don't win, it's not going to make a difference. But there's certainly some teams that have more favorable schedules than other. But did you want to kind of touch on as far as teams that are in the playoff race currently? Who do you feel has the more favorable matchups closing out, and who do you feel has the tougher road as we conclude the season?
Yeah, I will. As we've seen for the last several weeks now, Baltimore and New York are battling it out for the East Division, but concurrently at the same time, whichever one does not win is holding the number 1 AL wildcard spot. And right now that's Baltimore, 5.5 games up over Kansas City, who is in the second slot. So both those teams look really good right now. And honestly, Baltimore's got the toughest schedule left. They have all playoff contenders and divisional teams going to Detroit, playing Detroit twice, Boston, Yankees, Twins, and then the Giants. So they are not going to see any lesser talented teams down the stretch, that's for sure. They were just absolutely routed last night against Boston. But in terms of some of the easiest, Detroit and Minnesota have two of the easier schedules in terms of non-playoff contenders that are on their schedule still. Of course, same thing. Minnesota lost the Angels last night, and they have two more against them. The Reds are a couple games under 500. Divisional series with Cleveland. They play Boston, but they also get the Marlins and the Orioles. So the Orioles could be interesting at the end, whoever has them, the Yankees, because if they're both locked in at divisional winner and the number one wild card spot, they might rest some guys over that last series if there's no advantage to be gained. But again, we won't know until we get a lot closer to those end games. But, as we know with Detroit, we're well versed on their schedule here. We're just hoping that, if we can get to that last two set series with Tampa and Chicago at home, hopefully by that point, Tampa's fallen off. They've been eliminated, and obviously Chicago's got nothing to play for, and we own them this year. So I would feel really comfortable if we're still a game or two out with those last 6 games with those two teams on our docket, because they're having to play spoiler, and I can't really speak, having never been a pro athlete, but it's got to be hard to get up knowing that your season's been done for how many ever weeks it's been. You're not really playing for anything, but you're still playing for your teammates, your fans, and essentially, your contract too. So definitely Detroit, Minnesota have the most favorable. Everyone else has one or two series against non-divisional teams, maybe one, or not divisional, but non-playoff contenders. But I think this is what's made the actual wild card and the current, second year format of the playoffs now that much more exciting. We up until the other week or two, we had just the White Sox had been eliminated from the playoffs. Now we have like 3 or 4. Look at all these teams. We have 7 teams that are in the hunt. One is guaranteed the division out of those 7. So you got 6 teams fighting off 3 wild card spots right now, and we're under about a dozen and a half games left on the schedule here. So this is going to be interesting, and you're going to see some guys on some of these other teams too that had, the 2-man call up for the month that, weird things happen in September. We've seen it go with us and against us. So, get your popcorn, get your Vernors, your ginger ale, and get your feet up in the recliner, because and buckle in. It's about to be one heck of a ride here.
Absolutely. And I forgot to get to the down on the farm. How could we forget? I mean, I know it's late in the year and it's less, actually the West Michigan Whitecaps actually just concluded their season. Definitely got to talk about the down on the farm. Like I said, the Whitecaps have concluded their season. So Max Clark's season is over. He had a very strong full year of action. He played in 107 games between low A and high A. He hit 279 with an OPS of 794, and he had 29 stolen bases and 33 out of 33 attempts. So a very solid year from him. He transitioned very well from low to high A, and he's really going to make it interesting next year as far as where they decide to put him. Do they move him straight to Erie at the beginning of the year? Because he hasn't really. I mean, he had a few. I think towards the end of the year he did struggle a little bit, which is how he ended up falling below 300. But for the most part, his transition was pretty seamless. When he moved up, I think he kind of took off after the All-Star break when he went to the Whitecaps, and we just saw a lot of exciting play. We saw him score from first base on a bloop single. I mean, he just seemed like his talent level exceeded the average player at that level. So if he doesn't start the year in Erie, very soon, I think that he will be getting advanced. And speaking of Erie, our boy Tater, Gage Workman, was named Player of the Month. He hit another home run, Tater, on Wednesday. As well, Liam Hicks, who was a part of that Carson Kelly deal, He's hit very well since he's come over to the Tigers system. He's been hitting about over 300. He hit a home run on Wednesday as well. Navigado hit a home run on Friday, and Justice Bigby, who made that jump from AAA this year, who's had a pretty rough year, but he has been hitting pretty well over the last month. He went 4 for 4 on Saturday. Seth Stevenson stole his 60th base of the season. He's played outfield for the Whitecaps this year. That is even at the level that he's at, that is not easy to accomplish. He's been pretty much like a contact speed hitter this year, but 60 home runs. I mean, as fast as Max Clark is, he only managed 30 this year, and Seth Stevenson has doubled that with the Whitecaps. Theron Lorenzo hit a 2-run home run on Saturday. He's one of the guys that got traded in the Jack Flaherty deal. Jack Flaherty, keep that in mind. We're going to get to him as well. But yeah, he's had a pretty strong year. He obviously transitioned over from the Lansing Loons over to the the Whitecaps, so just down the road. But thus far, that trade, the Jack Flaherty trade, has reaped some pretty good benefits. Obviously, Trey Sweeney is already in the majors and here to stay for the foreseeable future, certainly for the rest of the year. But that will pretty much wrap up down on the farm. We're going to take our last break and get to some final topics before we wrap up. All right, I told you to remember the name Jack Flaherty. We got some news. Hopefully you can fill me in because I can't remember exactly what the source was and what this and the full extent of the story. But I guess there was some talks that maybe Flaherty was hoping to stay in Detroit this year.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that goes back even before the trade well before the trade deadline too, when he got on a roll with him and Olsen and Skubal were just dealing for a handful of weeks, in late spring, early summer. But he said he definitely wouldn't have mind signing an extension to stay. The only thing is it never really materialized beyond that point in terms of even informal discussion with the club, his agent, and front office. So we don't really know what that number would have been.
Right,
and the thing about it is, too, the front office made it very clear when they made these, on paper last winter, when we saw these signs come in, we're like, this is not that appealing. Mark Hanna's not a 30 home run, 105 RBI guy. And, okay, they made it very clear. Okay, these guys are on, other than Maeda, who's in a 2-year deal, all these other guys are on 1-year deals pretty much. These are rental players. If they do well enough to increase to a value worthy of a trade, that's what we're going to end up doing. I mean, they were pretty, transparent about that. But the fact that we don't know what the number would have been, since the discussion didn't go that far, it's kind of tough to say. And given how little Illich has been spending as of late, I don't know if the number would have been what he would have valued himself personally. I mean, obviously, you come off a year like that at that age, stage in your career, you want to make sure you get paid and kind of protect yourself and your family a bit. So, but the onus is right now that the Dodgers don't look like they'll offer an extension, right, but he'll end up commanding a number to a team that will be willing to pay it. That I think right now, or even back then, I don't think Illich would have been comfortable paying him to stay versus continuing to invest that money in the young core that we have, outside of Cole Keith, who's locked up for the next 5 years or so. Obviously, we have team control of a handful of other guys, but in terms of extensions for larger contracts, that was the original sentiment that Flaherty liked. Detroit loved the fans. Obviously, Chris Fetter did a wonder for him for this year, kind of giving him a jolt of life after some down year 2, St. Louis before he came over. But yeah, I mean, look, hindsight's 2020. You know, he's doing really well in LA right now for the Dodgers, and obviously we've fought our way back. To like a month and a half ago, we were over 11, 12 games out of the wild card spot. So,
right.
It's tough to say because, if we reverse the trade, let's just say we did that for the hypothetical. Okay, we don't have Sweeney. Now we're relying on Kryler to play shortstop every day.
Oh my God.
Every day.
And McKinstry, but yes.
Well, yeah, but he'd be filling in kind of like what he is now. But I mean, that's what we'd have left because Baez still would have he would have played the same amount. That wouldn't have changed. So you would have been left with one legitimate shortstop on your roster. Basically batting 150, 160,
under 2 for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough too when you got and all the other guys they called up have gone through their own growing pains at different times over the last maybe month or two, if that. So then you throw that into the mix too. I mean, instead of 3 games back, who knows? They could be, yeah, sure, the Flaherty starts would be great, but the run production you lose from that spot and the other guys they've had in there since then, that's is it an even trade-off? Does it matter? Do we lose more games because we don't score as many runs? Or does he potentially get a no decision because we go into extras and we score 1 run but we lose in extras because we can't keep up? I don't know, but look, I think the trade was the right thing to do. That was their goal. They were very transparent about it. Who knows? I'd like to see him throw their hat in the ring for him in the offseason, but again, he's going to be pushing 30, if not already. It's kind of that awkward age for pro athletes, especially, maybe more so in other sports than some, but baseball for pitchers, especially, 27, 28, 29, 30, the shelf life after that tends to drop off pretty significantly. So, aside from some of your generational talents that do end up making a career that long, but look, we're going to be in a good spot next year with, healthy Reese Olson, School, maybe Mize. I don't know. I would imagine they'll hold on to him at least to start to the year. And then I'm almost assuredly they'll have Jackson Jobe will be in the rotation to leave one open.
We didn't talk about that. He's now that he's in AAA now, or maybe you did. Maybe I missed it.
No, he was promoted to AAA over the prior to the weekend series against the A's. But I think that was just a matter of getting continued work because, like you said, the Whitecaps are done. Toledo plays for 12 more days. They play until September 22nd for their season's over. So I think they want to kind of give him some of those innings back that he lost back in May when he was out for about a month or so. So give him some of that work later into the season. And obviously against a little bit better talent that's left that hasn't been called up on the other, minor league AAA affiliates and continue to evaluate, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, he's going to get some of that small AAA taste down the stretch here. But yeah, Jobe is going to, unless they go out and sign 2 veterans to fill those other 2 rotational spots, I don't see a scenario right now where Jobe is not in the rotation in 2025 out of spring training with the club. So, Flaherty, Sweeney, look, the focus is right now, this team is at where they're at with who they've got. And, injuries have been a big part of some of the, innings having to be eaten by the bullpen and the openers, et cetera, all those combinations. So, honestly, we're just hoping to get Reese back at this point and, wish Flaherty the best in LA this year. And, I guess we'll see what happens in the winter. That's all I can really say on that. But, the focus now is 3 games out, 4 to jump divisional teams that are ahead of us and go from there.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to unpack the Jack Flaherty situation. All right, there's a lot to unpack with the Jack Flaherty situation, but I'm just gonna just kind of touch on what my personal opinion on the situation is. Ultimately, I think Scott Harris made the right decision based on a couple of different aspects. Well, as far in hindsight, when you look at it, the Jack Flaherty trade from a pitching aspect hasn't really affected us that much. Granted, at the time we thought that the pitcher by committee situation did not have sustainable value. As of this far, it has done pretty well from us with a Reese Olson waiting in the wings coming back soon. Ultimately, making that trade to get Trey Sweeney paid dividends nearly immediately because we needed him pretty quickly into it. Even before he was called up prior to Baez going on the injured list, but certainly now, we needed him. He was able to bolster our prospect, prospects as a whole with a guy like Dayron Lorenzo, who's now in the top 100. And at the time, Jack Flaherty's injury situation was something that we had to factor into things as well. So to be able to turn around and get two quality prospects, it made all the sense in the world. I understand from an emotional standpoint, Jack Flaherty not wanting to leave, may ultimately affect us being able to bring him back, because we have every bit of an opportunity to bring him back. Like you said, the Dodgers are not likely to extend, a sizable offer, but the Tigers can. The radio personality Matt Ryan from 97.1 was very vocal about, the fact that we kind of severed that relationship, given that he was not happy about having to leave Detroit. But ultimately, it's a business. It's not personal. If he genuinely wants to play in Detroit, there's an opportunity for us to come to a deal, and he can be a part of us building a very, very respectable pitching staff that could possibly include a Jackson Jobe moving forward. So that's a personal situation. We actually did him a favor. He's continuing to pitch well. He's staying healthy, which is going to enhance his value that we would have to pay. And he still has an opportunity to win a World Series when it's all said and done. And he can come back and bring that fortune to, back to us as well. So, ultimately at the time that the trade deadline happened, we were hot, but we weren't so hot to where we are now, to where we have a legitimate opportunity. So when it was all said and done, Scott Harris had to bite the bullet, trade a guy that was pitching well, that wanted to be here, but he ultimately had to do that in order to strengthen the team as well. The blessing is the team did not really fall off. Early on after the All-Star break, All-Star break and the trade deadline, we did fall a little bit, but as of late, we've continued to have success. We've got some help from other teams around us, and lo and behold, that trade really didn't hurt us when it's all said and done. If anything, it helped us because we ended up needing a shortstop. And now, it is what it is with the Jack Flaherty situation. We've already shown that we can bring guys in that are, struggling and turn them into perennial all-stars, like what's his name? Lorenzen, Eduardo Rodriguez, and now a Jack Flaherty. We can make another Jack Flaherty. If he decides that he doesn't want to, we're still gonna have a Reese Olson, Scooble at the top of our rotation. We can still go and get another veteran guy that can eat some innings and pair him with the Jackson Jobe. So I'm not torn up ultimately with the whole Jack Flaherty situation. We can always come back to the table and make that situation right. But he kind of killed two birds with one stone with that Jack Flaherty situation. So that's where I'm at with it. Do you have any other words on that topic?
Not really. I mean, the thing about it too, like I know it's
Oh,
probably
not to cut your wisdom. I don't want to cut your wisdom, but we talked about Ryan Kryler. He's hitting 119 right now. That was going to be our shortstop for our everyday shortstop outside of Zach McKinstry with Baez out. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of the personal emotion with him not wanting to leave, I would imagine it's got to be tied to Chris Fetter. And I know when they fired Gritall, their former manager of Chicago, Fetter's name was one of the first to pop up for the short list of potential candidates to be interviewed. Obviously, he was, I believe he was last with Chicago, if I'm not mistaken. So he's got some ties there. You know, I got the interim former Tiger killer Grady Sizemore managing that club right now. That's a hot mess, but not getting too far down the post play state of the team in terms of the offseason. But that's going to be taken into consideration too for Flaherty. If Illich or Harris is going to be serious about making him offer, that could potentially be a deal breaker. If Fetter moves on and is offered a managerial job somewhere or a position of more responsibility in another club that we potentially just don't have an opportunity for to elevate him, that could also play a factor into it too. So a lot of these guys, they get not so much positional players because you have an infield coach, you may have an outfield coach or coordinator. Those guys, I feel like it's not as in depth, maybe especially with a lot of veterans, maybe the younger guys that are in their first few years in the league get more instruction and whatnot, and they go through drills. But comes to pitching, I mean, there isn't much more of an intimate relationship in terms of player and staff in terms of pitching and pitching coach. So we'll see how that shakes out. But I have seen too over the weekend that basically the Flaherty deal to LA was out of necessity for them. They've had we think we've had some bad luck with injuries. They've been absolutely decimated on player positional and pitching injuries all year, including, I think at one point they said before the All-Star break, almost their entire starting rotation from opening day was on the IL at the same time. Now, then that's kind of where we have been close to being since the trade deadline. Granted, we, on our own volition, trading Flaherty didn't help that, obviously, but that's, it ended up being a blessing for us. But when I say that, I have seen that early talks so far seem to indicate that the Tigers may very well be interested in going after Walker Buehler, also of the Dodgers. So we'll see. Again, not going to get too far into the terms of free agency. We're not there yet. This team is not like we're 10 games out in the wild card with 18 left and we're almost not going to make it. My personal projection here, transitioning from Flaherty to the stretch here, I'm thinking with, the fact that we've got to clear a game over either Minnesota or Kansas City, whoever ends up in that third spot, to clear the tiebreaker. I'm feeling we need to go about 13-5, maybe 12-6 at absolute worst, because they got to factor in that, on some of these nights that we do win, we may not gain ground, and same thing with some of the losses, and vice versa. So, where we gain in one or two, we may not gain or be even with another team. So there's a lot of jockeying going around. So, 18-0 would be great, but let's be realistic here, and they're gonna have to get some. I feel like some help. They don't need a ton. They need just enough with their own control in winning games. But yeah, about that 667 win percentage is what I'm kind of looking at in terms of what they need to do on their own end to put themselves in an absolute prime position to get in the wild card, and then let the rest fall where they may.
Absolutely. And what is the Cy Young race looking like? Obviously, we're referring to Tarek Skubal. I think he had a no decision over the weekend
I mean,
against
in terms of
the
Cy Young, He's got it's locked up. He's a runaway favorite. Him and Chris Sale right now in both leagues, respectively. Maybe more impressively with Sale just because of how old he is, and Boston traded him for next to nothing after the big extension they gave him, and he was riddled with injuries year in year out over his few years there. But in terms of Scooble, it's now it's a Triple Crown race that we've been keeping an eye on here,
Right.
and he obviously won't start until he had the no decision, but the wins, he's tied for first. He's second behind Sale. Let me say this. He's leading all American League in the three categories: wins, ERA, and Ks. So he would win the American Triple Crown, which Verlander last did. But he's going for the overall league Triple Crown like Miguel Cabrera did as well. So it's him and Sale right now. Ironically, the two Cy Young front runners are battling out to try and win the overall Triple Crown. So he's his ERA is 2.53. Sale's got 2.38. And right now he has 5 strikeouts behind Chris Sale at 208 to Sale's 213. But Scooble was the first pitcher this season to reach that 200 strike plateau mark.
All right. So that pretty much concludes the show. The Tigers are 2 games above 500. They are 3 games out of the final wild card position, and they are sitting in a spot where they can control their own destiny. They got 6 games coming up against Baltimore, and 3 coming up against the Kansas City Royals, with a few other games sprinkled in as well. But those are very big pivotal games that they have an opportunity to directly affect their wild card position. And we just need the young guys to continue to contribute, and just hope that some of the guys that have been around for a little bit longer, like a Veerling, a Green, Kerry Carpenter. I mean, for all intents and purposes, he's going into his second full year, but those have been the constant, consistent guys all year. We obviously need to continue to get contributions from them as well, but it's going to be really interesting down the stretch. I don't know if we anticipated in some of the dog days in June and July that we would still have some important things to talk about. We might have thought that we would be looking more towards the future and how we can improve the team, and we will certainly get to that. But for the time being, we are living in the present in a September race right now. It feels good. My birthday is tomorrow. This is the ultimate. This is the ultimate birthday present to just experience some baseball, and we're gonna go to some games down the stretch as well. So
hey, it's been 8 years, so yeah, you're not too far off by saying this is Christmas in September right now. So
it feels like Christmas, and with the excitement of the Pistons starting and the Detroit Lions starting 1-0, and them hopefully prime for another playoff run as well.
Hey, don't glaze over my Spartans, the only undefeated football team left in the state, baby.
Yes, the MSU Spartans as well, and then we can't forget about the Red Wings starting too. So we got a lot of stuff going on in Detroit sports, and if you want to stay on top of that with us, please subscribe to Bleachers to Speakers on YouTube. That's where you get the raw, uncut footage as we are recording it. And then as well, please subscribe to Corner to Copa. That's where we have all of our audio products production as well. But yeah, stay tuned. We're going to have more shows as we conclude this Tiger season and get into all the other seasons. I got my boy Coach here. We're signing out. Any final words? Talk your ish about the Spartans.
Yeah, it was. I didn't really catch the game. Really, just kind of on my phone a little bit while I was working a last minute impromptu baseball tournament locally here. But it's. I think this is going to be the new format, college football. We've had a lot of ranked upsets over the weekend, but that'll be fun. But to close on a little bit more of a serious note here, September is National Suicide Prevention Month. If you yourself, loved one, close friend, family member think they're in need of help, please go ahead, have them share. They can dial 98988, or they can call the traditional number 1-800-27-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. Everyone's going through different stuff at different times, so just keep an eye out for each other. And like Foster said, he's got the big B-Day tomorrow, and we'll be in person downtown a couple times down the stretch here to watch this race with the rest of the fans that we congregate with. So we're looking forward to it, and it's going to be absolutely gorgeous doing it. So hopefully that's a good omen of things to come for the Tigers.
Absolutely. And we are out.